What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Hardison, and today I have a box. Welcome back, everybody, to, of course, the lovely Adrenaline RC YouTube channel, where today I have a nice white square box sitting in front of me, and we're gonna unbox it, find out what is inside, and then go from there. It is from a company called Paragon RC. I believe I'm saying that correctly. And after doing a little bit of research online, I have a sneaking suspicion that there are going to be some tire jigs in here, of which I did receive this box very soon after posting my tire gluing video. So I imagine that this is going to have something to do with that. So without further ado, not spending too much time here just staring at me in this lovely white box, let's go ahead and open it and see what is inside. So we're gonna try and flap this open. Get a little sneak peek of the inside there. I hear some rattling going on, and we're gonna start pulling stuff out. Lovely packing materials, and sure enough, as I suspected, we have a tire gluing jig, and it looks like there are even some different gluing tips that are sitting on top here. So before we go and spend too much time actually looking at this, let's get everything out of the box first. Got some more, oh dear, I am throwing glue tips around everywhere. They're definitely gonna be well stocked up on that. Looks like so far we've got a 1/10 buggy, 1/8 buggy. We've got one more in here with some more glue tips around. Throw that out. And this is going to be a 1/8 truggy and even more glue tips. So I am certainly set up for quite a while with these lovely metal tips. So here are our 3 jigs sitting out here in front of me. And then we've got a nice little sticker and then a little note that they wrote me. How kind of them. I love getting fun boxes. We'll set those off to the side here, and then that should clear us out. And then we'll set this down below. So taking a look at our tire jigs here, obviously, as I already said, we have 3 different ones here, and I've even got another sticker stuck inside there. We've got 1/10 buggy, 1/8 buggy, and 1/8 truggy. Now, the 1/8 buggy and truggy, those ones I can definitely see how they work. Looks like what we've got is a screwing mechanism, and then, are there different plates in here? There we go. So that does pop out. Looks like we're just riding on a bearing here in the bottom. And then we've just got this nice thick plate that it sits on. And then you can just spin that around inside. And that should be how each of these are set up. Now, the buggy and truggy, like I said, I can understand how those can work, because with the flat 1/8 bead, it is just a matter of just peeling it back a little bit and then it kind of exposes it all. The one that I am most interested in out of the 3 of these is the 10 scale one. So I know I haven't done an updated 10 scale gluing video yet, but 10 scale tires, the 2.2s, the bead will actually sit like in a groove in the wheel. So I'm interested to see how this is going to pull back. So if I unscrew this, almost, and we open it up, it looks like in here we've got a few different plates. We've got a thin plate, a medium plate, and then our main thick plate. I imagine that you'll use each of these depending on if you're doing like a rear tire or a front tire. And then I think the super thin one is gonna be like if you have a full drive front, you use just the base and the medium. And then this thinner one maybe makes it go a little higher because 2-wheel drive wheels are a touch thinner compared to the 4-wheel drive. That is my prediction here. Same thing as our 8th scale buggy one. Looks like we've got just a bearing sitting in the bottom, and then that rides on a little post inside our actual cage, basically. Then from there, what it appears is our top portion here will just screw back on, and then depending on how tight you have this, should affect how much of the bead is exposed. So this is very cool. I'm very excited to try these out. I haven't used a tire jig in a super long time because one of the things that I've always felt is that they don't peel the bead back far enough for some of the tires. They kind of peel back like half of it rather than the full thing, and I like to get as much coverage as I can. That way, of course, we are the most successful at the track. I do have some 8-scale buggy and some 10-scale buggy tires on hand that I can test these with. And of course, we are going to test them in this video, see how well they work. I don't have anything truggy on hand right now, but the truggy should be effectively the exact same thing as the buggy, just on a larger scale. So we'll set that guy off to the side. And like I said, we're gonna focus on our 10-scale buggy and 8-scale buggy stuff today because that's just what I have. And of course, we'll give these nice metal glue tips a go. I am gonna use the medium glue, so hopefully the bore of these is large enough so that way the glue comes out nice. And from the looks of it, I think these will be good to go. So what I'm gonna do is we'll do our normal spin around to the back. I'm gonna get a tire of each prep to get it clean, get the holes punched and everything. And then I will meet you guys back when we actually are ready to glue so we can try these things out. All right, so here we are back in the lovely activity hot seat where I've got my 2 tire jigs, I've got my 10-scale and my 8-scale tire, got my glue ready to go here, and then I've got a couple of tire bands, I've got a microfiber just kind of off to the side. So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna start with the 8-scale tire and then do the 10-scale tire. And the few things that we're gonna be looking for here are gonna be A, how far does the bead actually peel back? So what's our coverage gonna be like? Then once we actually get glue onto it, we start peeling it apart. How well is the bead then going to sit down onto the wheel itself? You know, is it gonna be nice and flat? Is it gonna be lumpy? What is it going to effectively look like? Obviously, looks are not as important as the function end of things, but if you have a nice, pretty glue job, then that is always awesome. So we'll start out with the 8-scale, do our 10-scale. I'm very interested in how this one's gonna go because of the way the 10-scale tires are set up. But without further ado, we'll actually swap these around here. So set that on top, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the construction on this guy, it's just gonna be a twist top. And what you'll notice is that these have super duper aggressive threads on it, of which traditionally, you know, if you're doing something that's plastic based, with the pressure that this is going to put on the tire itself, you would be worried about potentially the threads ripping, but they definitely took that into account. These are super thick and beefy, so I don't think we're gonna have any problems here at all. And then the setup portion of it should be super easy, which is literally just a matter of taking our tire and setting it onto our nice spinner. And then of course the tire spins nice and smooth. So we're gonna take this, I'm gonna thread it down on here. We're gonna see how far it peels it back, or if it is even to a way that, you know, you can screw it on some and then you can go even to an extreme past what you would actually need. So we'll go ahead, line up our threads, make sure the tire itself is as centered as it can be, just in case there's any like slop in it, of which we look good to go. And then we're just gonna thread this all the way down till it stops. So threading it all the way down until it stops, we can take a look here. I'm gonna use my angled glue tip just as a little pointer. Looks like we've got, I mean, I would say at least 75% coverage around, or I guess 75% opening around it. To some extent, I guess it can't really go all the way back because no matter what, there's the plastic ridge that's on the wheel itself. So it is basically gonna push this against that ridge and then open it up as much as possible. But it looks like we've got pretty good coverage, or pretty good opening to get good coverage. So I don't really have any major complaints there at all. I think the only spot is this is sitting up just a touch, but everywhere else is just fine. So that might just be the tire was sitting on it kind of funky. So let me pull this off real quick, make sure the tire itself was sitting on our wheel okay. Don't want to have any user error when we're doing this test. You want to have a nice, accurate reading. Set it down. And I think we're about as good as we're gonna get there. Rethread this, and we'll do a double check. Take a look all the way around. Yeah, it looks like that high spot has gone away, or at least it's just gotten smoother, so nothing that I can see as well. So from what I can take just visually, I mean, it looks like we should get pretty good contact here, and we'll go ahead and we'll just throw some glue in it. Now, I don't know how much glue to throw in it because obviously it's super wide open and I don't want it to just like splooge everywhere. So I'm gonna give a generous amount just for good policy because I can always wipe it off with my rag, but we're gonna see how it goes. It definitely makes it easy to get in the bead, that's for sure. And then the other thing that I actually am noticing here is that I mentioned that the tire actually will ride on a bearing that's sitting in there. Once this is all tightened down, that bearing actually doesn't really do much, simply because, well, it's all the way tight, so it can't spin. So we've got our glue all the way down. We'll unthread, we'll push it down and off. Oop. Take this out, and then we're gonna slide our bead forward. Take our tire band. All right, and then we're gonna get off all of our excess glue here. Set that off to the side. Get this just set out of our way real quick. And we're gonna take a look at our bead. Bead itself looks pretty solid. No complaints really. Maybe, I mean, just a touch of a high spot there, but nothing crazy at all. This looks really good. I had that little bit of extra splooge out because obviously I used extra glue compared to probably what I actually needed, just because it's always better to have more rather than less, because the function of it is the most important. So from what I can see here, and based off of the opening that we got when it was actually sitting inside the jig itself, it seems like it came out pretty good. I don't really have any complaints about it. The majority of the bead, with the exception of that one high spot, is super even, super level. There's no weird ridges, which obviously if you're doing it by hand and you're peeling it back with your thumb, there's a fairly high chance that there are ridges that are gonna form around the tire. So from what I can see here, let's see if I can get a little bit of a closer look for you guys. I don't know how well that shows up in the video. Get a nice spin around there, nice and slow. But, I mean, it was really, really easy. I mean, at the very least, even if this didn't come out as well as it did, it certainly put a lot less stress on my thumbs, which was nice, of which, obviously, if you're just doing a single tire, it's not terrible at all. But I imagine, you know, if you're doing 4 or 5 sets, well, I don't have to imagine it, I know. When I'm doing 4 or 5 sets, the thumbs will definitely start to get tired. So far, I'm happy with the jigs at the moment, and that's coming from a person who pretty much always was against using them, because I just felt like I said earlier, they didn't really peel the bead back enough. But this one was super easy to use. I didn't have any issues at all, peeled it back plenty, and it came out really, really nice. So now that we are finished up with our A scale tire, we'll take both of these, just set them off to the side there, and we're gonna take our 10 scale tire. So we'll open up our jig, and then because I'm doing a rear tire, I'm gonna take off both of these plates here, because I imagine I'm not gonna need them at all. Set that down, and we'll set this guy on top. Now, one thing I will show you actually before we get super into it, what I was saying earlier is there's gonna be these grooves inside. So not only does it have to peel it back, but it has to peel it back far enough to where you can get this inner sidewall as well as this flat, whereas obviously with the A scale tires, you don't have to do that as much because it's just a flat bead all the way across. So that is what I'm most interested in, is if it's going to actually allow the bead of the tire to peel back far enough to where you can hit not only that flat part, but also hit that side part. So get our tire mounted nice and level here and throw it in. And then of course, if you feel like that this doesn't get it down enough, there are always the options to throw those couple of extra shims on there. So we'll get this seated on. Make sure we're nice and centered up. And this has got a lot of threads on it, so I imagine that we're gonna go pretty far back on the bead. So we're just gonna start opening this up. And with it probably approaching the halfway part of the thread, the entire side portion of the bead is exposed. I don't know how well you can see that in the video. This tire does sit more into the jig, whereas the A scale tire was kind of more exposed on the outside of the jig. But if you take my word for it, I can fully see the side of the bead here, and then I can actually start to, if I get the right angle, I can start to see the flat portion of the bead. So we're gonna keep going a little bit further here. And now actually I've fully exposed the bottom side of the bead, and I'm actually starting to lose a little bit of the side of the bead. So the thing that I was worried about is certainly not a problem. We have plenty of threads left, and the entire bottom portion of that bead is fully exposed, so no problems there at all. So we'll go ahead and start gluing. Same thing as the A-scale tire. I don't know what is going to be too much and what's not going to be enough, but I imagine that we're going to have to put some glue on this flat spot and then maybe release it a little bit and then put glue on the side potentially. But we'll go ahead and we'll give it a go. And then also, looking at these tips, being that they're angled, I can see why they do the angled ones, especially with this one, because you have to come in it kind of at this odd line. A straight tip would definitely not be the most ideal, would be probably kind of difficult to get into it. So this is definitely super useful to help out. So I guess I'm gonna try and lay this flat and then kind of look at it from the side here. And then we're just gonna load this up. And then just like the A-scale tire, you basically just rotate the entire jig around. And then I think we're filled up. So I'll release it back a little bit. Then I'm gonna throw a touch of glue on the itself. Hopefully I don't let it sit for too long to where the glue doesn't allow the bead to sit all the way in. And then we're gonna peel this all the way up. Squish it in with our tire band. And it looks like we're good to go. Do a quick visual inspection, make sure glue kind of splooged out of everything. A couple spots where I could have added a little bit of extra glue, but even those spots, if I actually peel it back just a touch, I can see where the glue is fully mated. So for this individual purpose, I just didn't put enough glue on it. So I'm gonna add just a touch kind of around this top part here. At this point with the glue on it, I don't really want to peel it all the way back, again, with the machine, because I don't want the bead to get stuck out of it. But other than the kind of personal error there of just not putting enough glue in, the bead came back to flat very well, no issues there at all. Those of you that have glued tires like this know that sometimes when you peel it back, the bead sits like halfway out of the actual ridge in the tire. This didn't have that problem at all. The bead is sitting perfectly flat. There's no weird pop out spots. And then, you know, other than just me not putting enough glue on it myself, this came out really, really nice. There's no bumps, there's no ridges. Everything's nice and smooth and consistent. So no problems whatsoever. I'm very happy with how this came out. And this was the one that I was most worried about because I've never really understood how you could expose both of the beads. Obviously, now that I've done it, I understand the process, but this came out really, really solid. So we'll set that back. We'll pull our A-scale tire back in here. See if we can get a little bit of a side visual on that, potentially. That is the one thing that is unfortunate about gluing videos, is that it's kind of hard to get the visual in. It's all kind of in a tight area, but we'll throw our shims back in here, of which definitely we did not need for our rear tire. We had plenty of extra threads still to go, so no problems there whatsoever. So now that we've gone over our two jigs, we'll go ahead, swap back to the front-facing view, and I'll kind of give my final thoughts of how I feel about these. So the big question of the day, now that we have, of course, finished up testing the product, is how do I feel about it? And I'm very happy with it. As a person who doesn't usually use tire jigs out of fear of not getting a good enough contact patch between tire and wheel, I don't feel like I really had that problem with these. And of course, the 10 scale one, you have plenty of movement with the extra shims to be able to get your full coverage, but the 8 scale one as well, I felt like that the bead pulled back as far as it physically could, and I was able to get plenty of glue in there to where I wouldn't have any functionality problems at the track. So very happy with that. The beads pulled back well. Doing the actual gluing portion was super easy because the bead was so exposed on both the tires. So no gripes there at all. The only thing that I really ran into was I just didn't put enough glue in it. But if I put enough glue in it, then of course it would be just fine. And the one that interested me the most, as I've said probably a couple times now, was the 10 scale one because of the way that bead is set up. It's not a bead that you would think would be able to be pulled back enough to be able to get the glue in there effectively and have a solid bond. But obviously I've been proven wrong. Not only does it peel it back plenty, but you could actually thread it down so far that it's almost too much. So you've got plenty of flexibility with that one for doing, you know, your rear tires and both your options of front tires. And then from a finish standpoint, they both came out super flat and level. I think the A-scale tire maybe had like a small hump on it, but I mean, that could very well be user error because, as I've said, I don't really use tire jigs all that much. But generally, the beads came out super flat, super clean, so it'll look really good sitting on your bench. You won't have any problems at all with that. But most importantly, the functionality was very solid. And then they do have more options compared to what is here. This, of course, being the 10-scale buggy and then our 8-scale buggy truggy. They've got a couple different ones, but these are going to be the most common ones. The other thing I want to state before I close out the video is that in no way am I getting paid to do this. This is just a box that showed up and they offered for me to be able to try it. They didn't say that I had to do a video or say good words or anything. They just sent me to try out. So this is totally 100% free will opinion of how I truly feel about the product. And if I hated it, I would say that, but I don't hate it. I think it works very, very well. And I do believe that they offer a dealer setup, basically. So I am going to get in contact with them and then see if maybe we can start selling these in store and online. That way you guys have a direct access to be able to try these out for yourself. So thank you for joining me in today's video and checking out the Paragon Motorsports tire gluing jigs. And we will see you guys next week for an all new video.